Right now, we just finished, I would say, phase one, which was to get other women involved in identifying the people that were in the pictures and to earn enough money so that we could begin the first phase of archiving the materials. What I ultimately hope for, I mean, along the way, maybe phase two would be to make sure that everything is properly preserved. And then it needs to be digitalized and it needs to be cataloged. It needs to be nationally or internationally. It needs to be searchable for anyone that's looking for lesbian history in the 90s. So surprisingly that we had such a sophisticated group in Florida, which is not known for being a leader in any area, including gay rights. So that's my hope, that our story will be preserved.
There were a group of women meeting because there was something happening in Miami and there was nothing going on in Fort Lauderdale. So it was a loose-knit kind of theory that we should do something to connect us. And so I went to that meeting at what is now the Public House, and there were about 8 or 10 people there. And we all talked a little bit after that. And the very next meeting that I went to was at Marty's office. Marty's knew about that meeting, and she encouraged Marty to meet me there because she knew both of us, but Marty and I didn't know one another. So that was the first meeting at which we knew each other, and that was the meeting that we actually started our treasury. Marty said, "This is important, everybody reach into your pockets, take out $5 and put it in on the table."
I came to Florida from St. Paul, Minnesota, from chiropractic college. So Ellen and I spoke on the phone, and I think I kind of fell in love right then with her voice. We hadn't met yet, but she had this really sexy voice. And she told me about this meeting where she was going to be and why don't we meet there, and we'll take it from there. Well, it did seem like a safe thing to do, get together at a meeting. And so we met at this other chiropractor's office. So I'll put $5 on the table and let's make this happen. It's enough talking. So we got about, about $30 together and decided we were going to meet again and make some bylaws and go from there. In the meantime, Ellen and I decided to go out and get something to eat afterwards and talk, and from there on we decided this was going to be something. And here we are, July 29th, 1987 till now, 2017. So we're at 30 years together.
We met the first Wednesday of every month. We set it up, the organization of the meetings, where the first half hour was a lot of networking. People set up tables if they wanted to network they had to register to network their table and set it up. But we were able to get people to come in and communicate, discuss their businesses. And when Sharon and I became officers, we changed the way that the committees were all structured. We added a lot of committees because we wanted WIN to be ran by the different members as a group, not by individuals. So we had a social committee that took care of all the dances and did a phenomenal job. We had the membership committee that created a brochure that helped drive our membership from 60 to 450. We had a group that actually worked on determining who we were going to have for speakers. I mean, that was a big thing, to just come up with 12 speakers a year. It doesn't sound like that's hard, but to get quality speakers that the people really wanted to hear. I think one of the big accomplishments that we did during our time with WIN was to watch it evolve and change and become such a strong group that meant so much to everybody. I mean, that was part of our lives. We worked really hard at the newsletter. That was a production, just getting a full glossy color newsletter out every month and getting it out in a timely manner that it would be able to be on the street before the meetings.
So the Women in Network newsletter went to members, went to other people. There was no charge for other people that wanted them on the mailing list. And it included articles about who's going to be our speaker the next month, and included information in there about what other projects we'd already done, pictures. We had people, local authors, Shelley Roberts, Ari Schwartz, published stories in there. We had an accountant that published, we gave information. There was also education, health issues, different things in our newsletter, as well as the flyers for the events and advertising. So our attendance at our general meetings, the first Wednesday of the month at Unitarian Church, had gotten quite large, and there really wasn't a formal parking area to that church. There was a huge grounds to it. And we actually contacted the youth group that was at our Gay and Lesbian Community Center at the time. And these were, wonderful, energetic kids. We bought them a little neon vest, and they came and helped the whole parking situation. And they had a great time doing it. Then they would come in and help us clean up at the end of the night, and we paid them. And it gave them an opportunity to do a little service, get paid, and also be around a positive situation. We see that many women networking and having a great time, and speakers, stuff like that. So that was a good partnership with the youth at the community center.
My name is Grace Reed. I was originally from New Jersey. I've lived all over the country, Iowa, California. I moved to Florida in 1976 and became involved with Women in Network in 1989. There were a couple of friends, which is almost always how these things happen, that a friend tells another friend. And I had recently come out of a relationship and decided that I should appoint myself membership chairperson, because then I could meet everybody. I became president later on. During those years, our goal was to have as much exposure to the lesbian community and all of the things involved with it. We had a speaker every month, a different speaker on a different topic. It might be a famous author, it might be a sex therapist, it might be someone who's going to talk about financial planning, psychological issues, if you're in an abusive relationship. I mean, every month was a different and more exciting thing to do. We had a tremendous committee of people, each of whom took different responsibilities. We had a person in charge of lining up speakers, somebody else who would be in charge of refreshments, and we always had a networking period. We had a lot of fundraisers that would go on, social activities. Maybe we'd rent a boat and everybody'd go out for a cruise around the harbor, dances, those kinds of things, social events that people would support because they were fun. There were not a whole lot of things 25 years ago for women to have a safe, empowering space. Marty and Ellen were brilliant in their decision to begin this organization because they could see the need for people to just have other people to relate to. We've reached a point in 2017 where many people are very accepting, but back in the day, we needed places where we could communicate with each other and share thoughts and just be without fear of judgment. I think there was as much a personal as professional component, but to win. But the professional component was what drew people in the first place. Everybody needs, at some point in their life, a lawyer, a doctor, a CPA, chiropractor. And this was an opportunity for people to focus on their business and, again, present a safe place. There were times back in the day when you'd go to a doctor and think twice about telling them that you were gay. Here was a place where you could find someone where you knew that would be a safe thing to do. I met my wife there. She came in to visit with some other friends, and we just really hit it off. And it was kind of a real fast romance. We fell in love very quickly and made a life together. We've been together 27 years. We adopted Christopher, who is now 25 years old, from Paraguay, and Claire, who's 23, we adopted from China. And Christopher's in college. Claire just graduated from the University of Florida, studying journalism. I think the message for the young people is to take time to appreciate what went before. This was not an easy path for them to have such a comfortable existence, a place where people don't fall over dead if you mention that you're gay, that there is acceptance and even reverence sometimes. My children and their friends think, no big deal, it's a non-issue to them. But those attitudes and circumstances were hard fought. Those were not things that were present 25 years ago when we began all this. I think the real success of WIN was not just all of the people who did find a life partner, which was something that happened regularly, but just the community of spirit, the sense of belonging and feeling connected to somebody who shared similar values and similar ideas, and a place where you could relax.
Great.
Okay, my name is Marcia Chernikovsky. I'm originally from New York. I've been in Florida since 1973. I was a member of WIN from approximately 1992 to roughly 97, 98. I'm an LCSW license. I'm a psychotherapist. Currently, I'm in private practice. At the time, I worked for Coral Springs Medical Center and had a private practice. And that's what I've been doing ever since. How I found out about WIN was through somebody that I had been seeing for some help because I was convinced I was crazy. I was married for 20 odd years. I had 2 children. I was living a regular life and all of a sudden realized that there was something else going on inside me and I really thought I was losing it. And so I went to speak with somebody, professional, and just casually she gave me this little piece of paper that said WIN on it and a phone number and an address, and she said, maybe this will help you out. Well, it helped me out enormously. The first meeting I went to, I thought there'd be 20 people there, and there happened to be about 500 people because it was a particularly special meeting with someone by the name of Marilyn Volker. And it was unbelievable. And as I'm walking up to the doorway, I must have looked green. I'm told later that I looked really frightened, and I was. And somebody said, first time? And I just, yeah. And she said, it's heaven in there, don't worry. So I wasn't sure what her concept of heaven was. I was very nervous, but it really was wonderful. And I found that I wasn't the only one on earth who found herself in this situation. So WIN became my life vessel. I devoted myself to it. My friends were there. My life was there. And it meant everything to me. And as time has gone on, that bedrock, that basis, I believe, has made it a healthy place in Broward County for gay and lesbian people. Because if you have a part of society that is not acceptable, is not okay, the whole society is not okay. It's out of balance, and it needs that balance. And because of the members in our organization, some of which you know very well, laws have been passed, things have progressed, and that came from that bedrock. That came from that sense of unity and that feeling of being together and knowing that we were healthy, functioning human beings. The then president, Grace Reed, who was absolutely wonderful and insightful, creative, and just really held it all together, said to me one day as I'm walking through a doorway, she looked at me and she pointed to me and she said, "The Moms Group." I said, "The Moms Group? What's that?" She says, "That's what you're going to have. You're going to be in charge. You're going to make a Moms Group." And I continued to walk through the door and I said, "That's a great idea." And that's what I did. And the Mom Group became extremely successful because I found out that I really wasn't alone. There were a lot of us who were gay and had children and husbands and ex-husbands and stories to tell and frustrations and fears. And so we had monthly meetings with or without the kids being there at the then center, which was a Unitarian Universalist church. And we also had monthly picnics, which for sure the kids were there and playing, and had all kinds of games and, hot dogs and hamburgers and food to share and all that sort of thing. And we shared what we thought, we were all alone, and it wasn't like that at all. And there were also couples there who had adopted children, and it was all kinds of people with their kids, and it helped us all to feel really connected and normal and healthy. My daughter and I have been very close. She was 15 or 16 at the time I was in the process of coming out, and I was still married to her dad, and I had told him what was going on, and I was very uncomfortable because my daughter and I shared everything and were very close, and at this point we were not sharing. So one day I said, "I need to talk to you." We went shopping, and I'll never forget, in the parking lot of Kmart, I told her that I was involved with a woman, and we both started to cry. We both cried, we shared. She was wonderful. My daughter was and is wonderful. And at the time, like I said, she was 15 or 16. My son was about 9 or 10. And I said, "Okay, now we have to figure out how to tell Ben." So she said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll tell Ben, I'll take care of that." And she did. And I asked her later, I said, "What did you say to him?" She says, "I said to him, listen, Mom's involved with a woman, she's gay, it's okay, don't worry about it." And he said, "Okay." And it's been that way ever since. My kids have never, even when they were furious with me, never brought up any of that. It was just always respected and always fine. And I have to say, even my ex-husband has been very supportive and great, and we're good friends to this day.
Florida.
My name is Kim Beers. I was born in the Northeast and raised in the Midwest. I've lived in all parts of Florida since about 1974. I was always very much of a political activist. I was involved with the National Organization for Women. I marched a number of times for women's reproductive rights. I was always involved in anything that promoted women. So Women in Network gave me an opportunity to take it up a notch because now we were focused on actually lesbian rights. I joined WIN in 1987. My political interests led me to an organization in Miami called Women in Network. Its founder, Brenda Stout, was inspired by the Cuban community who had united together and built strong social, political, and economic bases. Her concept was that if increasing numbers of lesbians worked together, exchanging their money and services, we could build a strong lesbian community in the same way. So underlying the laughter and camaraderie of the early WIN was a feminist base and an understanding that money equals power. We believed that if lesbians were ever going to be taken seriously, we needed more money. So I wanted to get involved, but the long drive to South Miami was a bit tiring. So I encouraged Brenda to pass my name along to other women from the Fort Lauderdale area who were interested in starting WIN in Broward County. My background has always been in advertising and marketing, so I preferred to kind of take on that role. At that time, we were very closeted, and the best way to reach people actually was via postal mail. So very much of it at that time would have been word of mouth. We had a fairly robust postal campaign going to help promote the organization and bring in more lesbians. I am a founding member of Women in Network. I'm also the original designer of much of their creative, including the original logo and then the next two renditions of the logo after that. So the goal of Women in Network at its inception was very much one of financial and political power. Our belief was that by bringing lesbians together and combining our resources, we could actually be strong enough to influence policy and influence women's rights and other things that lesbians cared very deeply about. So out of that came social committees and a golf club and all these different committees. But the part that was always closest to my heart was the activism of the organization. The newsletter, I would have done the early versions. They would have been typed in 1987 on electric typewriters. The monthly meetings, I spent a good amount of time working at the front, the entry, when people would come in, and they had a funny name tag system. But one was to indicate whether or not you were single, and the other was to indicate whether or not you were involved with somebody. So you can see just by that, there was absolutely a need outside of just its political roots. There was a need for lesbians to have a safe place to get to meet each other. Challenges that Women in Network had is that they referred to Women in Network, other lesbians, younger lesbians, referred to Women in Network as an organization for old dykes. So we set out to challenge this. We actually put together an entire ad campaign with a strategy to try and combat this kind of stigma, because it really was an organization for all lesbians, regardless of how old they were. So that particular graphic is part of the Stonewall Library, and the idea at the time was we were working toward being more hip and cool so that we could really capture younger lesbians. Bringing in younger lesbians was important because if we were to continue the organization, we certainly needed younger blood to do that.
I was not out while I was with WIN. I worked for the corporate USA, and it really was not healthy to be out. But being in WIN, I was able to give a lot to WIN behind the scenes. I was out in the meetings. I was in front of the people as president and ran the meetings and did a lot of work. But there were other people that were out, and Sharon was the face of the organization if somebody needed to go out to the community or to be in the press.
So one of the things I think that helped WIN is that we were a vital part of the overall gay community. Many of the organizations would come to us at our first Wednesday meeting to promote their events, their fundraising, whatever their group is doing.
I think the real success of WIN was not just all of the people who did find a life partner, which was something that happened regularly, but just the community of spirit, the sense of belonging and feeling connected to somebody who shared similar values and similar ideas.
Living in LA and in San Francisco, we did have big social networking lesbian groups, but nothing as organized, nothing at the magnitude of Women in Network.